Hello again, welcome back to Black Moon Coven. So today's video is going to be all about grimoires, books of shadows. This is a subscriber request. I got requested to show off my book of shadows, which I don't do that much, and I figured, why not? What the hell? So a lot of witches feel it's inappropriate to show off your book of shadows. It's a form of privacy. You know, you do all of your incantations and spell work in there. You don't want to show it to other people. I don't really mind as long as you are genuinely interested and, you know, are genuinely interested and want to know about it, then I show it to you. No skin off my back if you don't like it or whatever. So there we go. So I'm going to show off a couple of my books of shadows first, and then we will get into my grimoire. So why do I call these my books of shadows? That is because they are filled with information purely. There's no spell work in there, there's no rituals. Either I was way too young to write any spells, or I didn't know how, or it's purely informational based. So this first book of shadows, you could tell how young I was, but this is my very first book of shadows, and I think I wrote this in 2008. So I wrote this book of shadows in 2008, and it's just purely information about everything, you know, elements, the sun, the moon, the zodiac signs, astrology, tarot, anything that I needed or I thought that I would need for witchcraft, I wrote it in here, and I didn't know at the time that I was actually making a book of shadows. So that is my very first one. And while I go ahead and do this, you're going to notice that yes, I have a lot of books, and that's because I've been a witch for a very long time. Now that means that you are going to have a lot of books. You're going to have the need to have some for information and some for spell work only. Now it's not a necessity to have a book of shadows or a grimoire. However, it's nice to document your journey so far and kind of how you've progressed and to learn from past mistakes and to improve on things. And that's kind of why I document so much that I do. This is my second book of shadows. It's just filled with incantations. So not much to see really, but it's just basically filled with incantations and things all the way through. So I filled it with different like deity incantations, the sun, the moon, basically like almost witchy poetry into this book. Next is another book of shadows, and this is my latest one that I filled. So this is a journal basically that I filled with information. And the reason why I don't put it into my grimoire is you'll see that it's a lot of information. I mean, if you put all of this into the grimoire, it would take up a lot of space, and this is just for spell work, for ritual space, and you kind of don't want to keep writing the same information down over and over. This is kind of just like a reference guide, and you'll notice that years of practicing, you kind of won't need to reference back to information. You'll kind of just know what to do, like what candle colors to use, what herbs to use, what day of the week it should be, what the moon phase is like. You'll kind of already know those things, so you won't need to look at a reference, but sometimes it's nice to have, so you don't have to pile through books and things like that. So this is my third and probably final book of shadows, but I never stop learning, so we'll probably fill up another one. And this is my grimoire. So as you can see, I'm kind of obsessed with this big magical book, you know. I did make it myself. I hand bound it myself, and I hand sewn the cover and everything else. So if you guys want a tutorial kind of how to bind your own books and do it in like a cheap manner, because books are expensive, journals are expensive nowadays. So if you want just an easy tutorial on how to bind a book in a very cheap way, I will be happy to do that. I think I bound this whole book under 30 bucks, I think, and I think that's even a lot. It could be 25, maybe even $20 that I did this book for. So I like making my own books because you could play around with the size and everything else like that. So before we actually get into what I have in this mystical, magical book, I do want to talk about some things regarding grimoires, books of shadows, mirror books, whatever you want to call yours. A lot of people are super particular about what they put in there, how they put it in, and organization, everything else. I'm not like that. You will not see anything like that here. You'll see scribbles, you'll see bad handwriting, you'll see basically no artwork, because I'm just not that type of witch. I like to write everything out, and yeah, that's just me. And there's no organization at all. I kind of just let things flow as they may. And just a word of advice for anyone that's starting out with the Book of Shadows, there is no perfect Book of Shadows. So, if you look at these old grimoires and you're fascinated by, you know, the books from Charmed or Hocus Pocus or anything like that, there is no perfect grimoires, okay? You're going to scribble. You're going to scratch things out. You're going to make mistakes. Who cares? It's all part of the learning process, and you're going to learn back, go back on that, and you're going to remember it. And it's just a form of documentation. It doesn't have to be this beautiful work of art. However, if you want it to be, that's totally fine. But I'm just stressing the point that people tend to overthink it. They tend to overstress the point of a Book of Shadows. So there's no perfect Book of Shadows. Just let it flow out naturally, and that makes the best book. So let's get into a little tour where I kind of show you the ins and outs of my Book of Shadows. So this is the cover, and it's just kind of bound in a fake leather, and then it has some really nice ladder stitches all the way across, and then I just kind of have a string of leather as a closure. So yes, I made the cover myself. From the craft store, I found this beautiful fabric where you can't really, this light doesn't do it justice, but it's like blue and smoky and purpley, and I just love it. So on the inside here, we have a little incantation for the book, for myself, for witchcraft, and it's written in Debian. And then we have some little dried flowers here, because I like to put dried flowers and things in my book, so you'll see that. Here we have an incantation to the moon goddess, and that is written in runes. Here is a fig leaf that I got gifted from another witch, and that's kind of really personal and nice, so I keep that with me. Here we have some basic information on elements. Now, I said before that I don't like putting information in my grimoires, but this is like basic information that if you're looking for it really quickly before a spell, this is going to be the place to go. So we have air, fire, earth, water, and spirit. And then here's an old wheel of the year. I don't really go by these holidays anymore, but it's just old information. So that's cool to see too how far you have grown in regards to that, how things have changed. This is a moon map sort of thing, just the moon phases. I feel like it's really important to have one of these in your Book of Shadows, just in case. Here are what the moons actually symbolize, what they mean, the months of the moon. Again, I don't really kind of go by this anymore. I never really did in the first place, but, you know, just old information. Here we have a bunch of Slavic deities, gods and goddesses, and I'm in the process of putting their symbols next to each one, because the Slavic people were big on symbols, and they kind of have one for each god, and I've been kind of slacking putting them in here, but I will eventually. It's just a little bit of time. So there's just some gods and goddesses. Here is the Slavic Wheel of the Year that I made, and it's written in runes, and it's my favorite book in my Book of Shadows because it's the most artistic one. You'll see after this it's less and less artistic. I'm horrible at drawing, so this is kind of the best I could do. Here is the holidays, kind of explaining it and what I do and how to celebrate. I'm still kind of working on it, as you can tell. Here's some information about trees, because I use a lot of bark, twigs, and shreds in my practice. So here's just some information on trees. Here's a page on runes. Here's a chant to Mother Earth. Here is a page on circle casting, which I don't really do anymore, so there you go. Just kind of grew out of that. Candle colors, magical days of the week, and some advice on spell work. So here are these spells that kind of come after. I'm not going to really go through them all, but you could see that there's not a lot of artwork here. What I do typically when I write a spell is, I'll show you, I write the materials down here, bullet point them, and then I bullet point kind of what I need to do, and if there is an incantation, I will do it with arrows. So as you can see, the information right here, kind of what you need to do, arrow, incantation, and then the rest of the spell. So that's kind of what I do. A ritual. Some sigils, forging luck charms. So as you can see, I kind of do 1 page per spell. Sometimes it travels across the whole thing, but I don't like to flip pages, especially when I'm doing spell work, because I want to kind of be in the zone. So, just some different spells. A recipe for elderberry syrup. And then we have some just different stuff. This is a third eye ritual. This is actually my tattoo right here. A spirit charm. So if you guys were wondering about how I made it and stuff, it's actually my Book of Shadows. Confidence spell. There's a binding spell. And yeah, I could read in runes. Candle dressing. So as you could see, there's some information hidden between the pages. I'm not very organized with that. I kind of just let it flow. So if I have to write something down like candle dressing or stuff like that, or powders or things, I just kind of let it flow. So there's a positivity fetish bag. There's a home protection chant in Polish. So I'm starting to kind of do more stuff like that. Here's an interesting spell. It's like a release spell, and I drew the sigil right here so that I could have it there when I'm doing the spell work. And then here's what needs to be done. Here's a really easy truth spell. Again, same thing with this. This was a full ritual, and I ran out of space, so I actually had to write a separate page. But that's just how it is. I just really don't like to flip pages. The lost animal spell. Some hexes. So sometimes, as you can see, I wrote the ingredients here, the method, and then the incantation is on the other side. So sometimes I like to change up what I like to do, but it's basically the same method all the time. I don't flip pages, I kind of just do this. So we have a lot of hexes and curses. A recipe for cursed powder. Some more obsession spell. This is my Baba Yaga page. So I have a beautiful chant into Baba Yaga in Polish. And then here are some of her just associations and things that I need. And then some extra space in case I need to fill that up. Success spell, and then we have a misery binding, and then a money sachet. So those are all my spells, and you can see I've only filled up like maybe like a notebook's worth of material here. I still have a whole bunch more to go, like so much. But that's kind of the book. However, I do want to show you guys, towards the end, I have some sigils that I like to reuse. So here are my sigils, and you've seen them throughout the book. And what I like to do is make the sigil, put it in here, underneath, write what it's for, and then I recharge them and reuse the sigil, because you can do that. Sigils, they kind of fade with time, so you kind of could recharge them and reuse them if you want to. So that is basically the book. All the pages are recycled paper, and yeah, that is basically it. So hopefully you guys liked this little video, this little tutorial of my grimoire, my Book of Shadows, my spell book. If you guys do want a binding tutorial, let me know, and I will happily do that for you. I always love to bind books. And yeah, join the coven and subscribe for more witchy, fun, uploady videos. And until next time, have a beautiful rest of your evening.